Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship and stared at the star map. The lights showed 200 Zephyrian ships moving through space like a pack of hunters. This was the most powerful fleet his people had ever sent into human space. The humans would not see them coming. "Sir, we are getting strange readings again," said Lieutenant Yexta from her station. Kethvar turned his 4 eyes toward her. His blue skin showed the dark marks that meant he was annoyed. "What kind of readings?" "The same ones from before, sir. Something very large is out there. But when we look directly at it, nothing shows up." The Admiral walked over to her station. The screen showed empty space, just stars and darkness. But the numbers at the bottom said something was there. Something huge. "How big?" he asked. "If the readings are right, sir, it would be bigger than our largest dreadnought. Maybe 3 times bigger." Kethvar made a sound that was like laughing, but not happy. "That is not possible. The humans barely learned to travel between stars 50 years ago. They do not have ships that big." "Yes, sir, but the readings keep coming back." Other officers on the bridge stopped their work to listen. Everyone knew the humans were weak. Their ships were small and slow. Their weapons were simple. The Zephyrian Empire had been watching them for decades. Human ships were nothing to fear. "Show me their largest ship," Kethvar ordered. A picture appeared on the main screen. It showed a human ship that looked like a metal tube with engines. On the back, it was maybe half the size of a Zephyrian cruiser. "This is their biggest warship," said Yexta. "They call it a battleship. Our intelligence says they have only 12 of them." "And you think they built something 3 times bigger than our dreadnoughts?" Kethvar asked. "Without us knowing about it?" "Sir, I am just reporting what the sensors show." The Admiral looked at the empty space on the screen again. He had been a military officer for 40 years. He had fought in 3 wars. He knew when sensors were broken and when enemies were trying to trick him. "It is a malfunction," he said. "Check all the sensor arrays. Replace any that are damaged." "Yes, sir." But even as he said it, Kethvar felt something strange. A feeling in his stomach that he did not like. He had learned to trust that feeling over the years. It had kept him alive in many battles. 2 hours later, Yexta called him again. "Sir, we replaced 6 sensor arrays. We checked all the others twice. They are working perfectly. And the readings?" "Still there, sir. But now we are getting them from multiple ships. The readings show the same thing. Something very large is moving parallel to our fleet." Kethvar looked at the tactical display. His fleet was spread out over a large area of space. If multiple ships were getting the same readings, it was not a simple malfunction. "Distance?" he asked. "About 5,000 kilometers off our port side. It keeps pace with us exactly." That was close. Too close. If there really was a ship there, it could attack at any moment. "Can we get a visual?" "We have tried, sir. Cameras show nothing. Long-range scanners show nothing. Only the deep space sensors detect it." Kethvar thought about this. Deep space sensors work differently than regular scanners. They looked for gravity changes and energy patterns. They were very hard to fool. "What do the energy readings show?" Yexta looked at her screen. Her face changed color to show she was confused. "That is the strange part, sir. The energy readings are like nothing in our database. The patterns do not match any known technology." "Human technology?" "No, sir. Human energy signatures are very simple. This is ... complex. Very complex." The Admiral felt that bad feeling in his stomach again. But he pushed it away. He was being foolish. The humans could not build advanced ships. They could barely manage space travel at all. "Sir," said another officer, "we are receiving a message from the scout ship Velther. They report similar readings. Put them through." The face of Captain Nixara appeared on the screen. She looked worried. Admiral, we are detecting a massive object in our sector, but visual confirmation is impossible. Request instructions. What is your location, Captain? Grid 77 Alpha. About 10,000 kilometers from the main fleet. Kethfer looked at the star map. That was on the other side of their formation. If both sides of the fleet were getting readings, then either something was very wrong with their equipment, or something very large was out there. Captain, are your sensors working correctly? We have run full diagnostics 3 times, sir. Everything checks out normal. The Admiral closed the communication and turned to his staff. Opinions? Commander Zalkoth spoke first. It could be a new type of human stealth technology, something we have not seen before. Or, said another officer, it could be equipment failure across multiple ships. Sometimes solar radiation can cause false readings. Or, said a third voice, it could be something else entirely. Everyone turned to look at Science Officer Telvin. She was old and had studied many different alien technologies. Explain, Kethfer ordered. Sir, the energy patterns do not match human technology. They do not match any known technology. What if the humans found something? Found what? Ancient technology, sir. There are stories of old races that lived in this part of space long ago. Races that disappeared before we developed space travel. Kethfer did not like where this was going. You think the humans found an ancient ship? It would explain the readings, sir. And it would explain why we have no record of the humans building such a vessel. The bridge became very quiet. Everyone knew the stories of the old races. Beings that could do things with technology that seemed like magic. But those were just stories. Legends to frighten children. Even if that were true, Kethfer said, the humans are too primitive to operate such technology. They can barely manage their own ships. Perhaps, sir, but humans are known for adapting quickly to new situations. The Admiral looked at the empty space on the screen one more time. Part of him wanted to turn the fleet around and go home, but he had orders. The Zephyrian Empire was expanding into this sector. The humans had to be dealt with. Maintain course, he ordered, but increase scanning frequency. I want to know everything about what is out there. Yes, sir. As the hours passed, the readings continued. Sometimes the object seemed to be in one place. Sometimes it seemed to be in several places at once. Sometimes it disappeared completely, only to return stronger than before. The Admiral tried to sleep, but could not. Every time he closed his eyes, he thought about that empty space where the sensors said something huge was hiding. When he returned to the bridge 6 hours later, Yexta was still at her station. She looked tired. Report, he said. Sir, the readings are getting stronger. Whatever is out there, it is getting closer. How close? 2,000 kilometers and closing. Kethfer felt ice in his blood. 2,000 kilometers was almost touching distance in space combat. Battle stations, he ordered. Alarms began to sound throughout the ship. All across the fleet, Zephyrian warriors prepared for war. Gun ports opened, shields powered up. Fighters launched from carrier bays. But still, the cameras showed nothing but empty space. Sir, Yexta said quietly, I am getting new readings. What kind? Energy buildup. Something is powering up out there. The Admiral stared at the darkness between the stars and wondered what they had found, or what had found them. The space in front of the Zephyrian fleet began to change. At first, it was just a small distortion, like heat waves rising from hot ground. Then the distortion grew larger and larger. Admiral Kethfer watched from his bridge as something impossible happened. The empty space twisted and bent. Light seemed to bend around it. Then, like a curtain being pulled away, a ship appeared. It was huge, bigger than anything Kethfer had ever seen. The human ship was dark gray, almost black, with strange curves and angles that hurt to look at. Parts of it seemed to fade in and out of sight. Other parts looked solid enough to touch. "Mother of stars," whispered Lieutenant Yexta, the human. Ship was easily 3 times the size of their largest dreadnought. But size was not the strangest thing about it. The strangest thing was how it seemed to exist and not exist at the same time. Parts of the ship looked normal. Other parts looked like they were made of shadow and starlight. "Sir," said the communications. "Officer, we are receiving a transmission. Put it through." The main screen changed to show a human woman. She had brown hair tied back and wore a simple blue uniform. Her eyes were calm but alert. Behind her, Cuthbert could see other humans working at stations that looked nothing like normal ship controls. "This is Captain Sarah Chun of the U.S. Prometheus," the human said. Her voice was steady and clear. "You have entered human-protected space. Turn back now." Laughter filled the bridge. Several officers could not contain themselves. The idea that one human ship could threaten their entire fleet was ridiculous. Admiral Cathfar stepped forward. "I am Admiral Cathfar of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. You will surrender your vessel immediately for inspection." Captain Chun looked at him without fear. "Admiral, you have 200 ships. We have one. But you are still outmatched. This is your only warning. Turn around and leave." More laughter came from the bridge crew. Even Cuthbert smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "Human, your largest warship is half the size of our smallest cruiser. Your weapons are primitive. Your shields are weak. What makes you think one ship can threaten my fleet?" "Because," Chun said quietly, "this is not just a ship." The communication ended. The screen went back to showing the strange human vessel floating in space. "Sir," said Yexta, "I am reading massive energy changes throughout their ship." Cuthbert looked at the readings. The numbers were climbing higher and higher, but they made no sense. No ship could generate that much power. "Weapon status?" he asked. "All ships report ready to fire, sir. Target their engines and weapon systems. Disable them, but do not destroy. We want to study their technology." "Yes, sir." The Admiral opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Admiral Kethvar. We are facing one primitive human vessel. They refuse to surrender. We will disable their ship and take it as a prize. This will be over quickly." Cheers came from ships throughout the fleet. This would be an easy victory. Something to tell stories about back home. "Sir," said the tactical officer, "the human ship is moving." On the screen, the Prometheus began to turn. But it did not move like a normal ship. Instead of using engines to push through space, it seemed to slide sideways without any thrust at all. "How are they doing that?" Cuthbert asked. "Unknown, sir. I detect no engine emissions, no thruster activity. They are just moving." The human ship completed its turn and faced the Zephyrian fleet directly. Now Cuthbert could see the front of a vessel. It had strange markings that seemed to glow with their own light. The hull looked like it was covered in patterns that moved and shifted. "Sir, energy readings are off the scale now." "Fire a warning shot," Cuthbert ordered. The flagship's main gun charged up and fired. A bright beam of energy shot toward the Prometheus. The beam should have struck the ship's shield and created a bright flash. Instead, the beam bent around the ship like water flowing around a rock. It curved away and disappeared into empty space. The bridge fell silent. "What just happened?" Cuthbert asked. "The beam. It did not hit them, sir. It changed direction." "That is impossible. Energy beams do not change direction." "Sir, we are receiving another transmission from the human ship." Captain Chun appeared on the screen again. This time she looked sad. "Admiral, we tried to warn you. We do not want to fight. But you leave us no choice. Human, Cuthbert said, his voice angry now. You have some kind of new shield technology. It will not save you from 200 ships. Surrender now, or we will destroy you. Admiral, Xian said, 50 years ago, my people found something in deep space. Something very old. We could have tried to copy it or reverse engineer it. Instead, we chose to understand it, to work with it, to become part of it. Behind her, Cuthbert could see the human crew working at their strange stations. But now he noticed something else. The humans were not just operating controls. They had cables and tubes connected to their bodies. Their eyes glowed with the same light as the ship's markings. What have you done to yourselves? He whispered. We evolved, Chun said simply. We became something new. But we stayed human where it mattered. The communication ended again. Sir, Yexta called out. The human ship is powering up weapons. All ships open fire. Kethver ordered 200 Zephyrian ships fired at once. The space around the Prometheus filled with energy beams, missiles, and plasma bursts. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. But as the weapons reached the human ship, something incredible happened. The space around the Prometheus began to fold and twist. The energy beams curved away like they had before. The missiles turned around and flew back toward the Zephyrian fleet. The plasma bursts simply disappeared. Evasive action. Kethvar shouted, but it was too late. Their own weapons were coming back at them. Ships throughout the fleet scrambled. To avoid missiles they had fired just seconds before, the cruiser Talvera took a direct hit from its own main gun. The destroyer Kexmoth was struck by 3 of its own missiles. Explosions lit up the darkness as Zephyrian ships were damaged by their own weapons. Cease fire! Cease fire! The admiral ordered. The fleet stopped shooting. Around them, debris floated from damaged ships. At least 6 vessels were badly hurt. 2 were completely destroyed, and the human ship sat in the middle of it all, completely undamaged. Sir, said Yexta, her voice shaking, the human ship is moving again. The Prometheus began to glide toward the Zephyrian fleet. It moved without any visible means of propulsion, sliding through space like a shark through water. Sir, we are being scanned. By what kind of scanners? I do not know, sir. This scan is unlike anything in our database. It feels like something is looking inside my mind. Kethver felt it too, a strange sensation, like cold fingers touching his thoughts. All around the bridge, officers were holding their heads and looking confused. The human ship stopped moving when it was only 1,000 kilometers away. At that distance, it filled their main screen. Kethvar could see every detail of its impossible hull. Parts of it looked solid. Other parts looked like they were made of space itself. Sir, incoming transmission. Captain Chun appeared one more time. But now Kethver could see she was different. Her eyes held depths that seemed to go on forever. When she spoke, her voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. Admiral, she said, you have seen what we can do in defense. Do not force us to. Show you what we can do in attack. Take your damaged ships and go home. Tell your leaders that humanity is no longer hiding. This is not over, Kethver said, but his voice shook. Yes, Chun replied, it is. The transmission ended. The Prometheus began to fade from sight, becoming transparent like a ghost. Within seconds, it was gone completely. But the Zephyrian fleet could still feel it out there, watching them from the darkness between the stars. Captain Sarah Chun stood in the center of the Prometheus bridge, but she was no longer just standing in one place. Part of her consciousness stretched through the ship's living systems, feeling every sensor, every weapon, every piece of alien technology that had become part of her vessel. That the Zephyrian fleet was spreading out around them, preparing for another attack. She could feel their fear through the ship's extended senses. Their confusion. They had no idea what they were really facing. "Prometheus," she said quietly, "show me their fleet positions." The ship responded not with screens or displays, but by placing the knowledge directly into her mind. 200 enemy vessels arranged in attack formation. 3 large dreadnoughts at the center, surrounded by smaller ships like guards protecting their leaders. "They do not understand," said a voice that was not quite human anymore. It belonged to Commander James Park, her first officer. Like all the senior crew, he had joined with the ship years ago. "Should we show them?" Sarah nodded. Around the bridge. Her crew moved with the flowing motions of people who were connected to something much larger than themselves. Engineer Lisa Wong had her hands inside a control panel that looked like it was made of liquid metal. The panel flowed around her fingers, responding to her thoughts rather than her touch. "Navigation," Sarah said. "Take us to the center of their formation." Lieutenant David Kim smiled. His eyes had been normal brown when he first joined the crew. Now they swirled with tiny points of light that looked like distant stars. "Already there, Captain." Sarah felt the ship move, but not in the way normal ships moved. The Prometheus did not travel through space. It convinced space to be somewhere else. One moment they were at the edge of the Zephyrian formation. The next moment they were floating between the 3 enemy dreadnoughts. The alien crews panicked. Ships scattered in all directions, trying to get away from the impossible vessel that had appeared among them. But Sarah was not interested in the small ships. She wanted to talk to their leader. "Open a channel to the flagship," she ordered. The communication came through not as radio waves, but as something deeper. The ship reached across space and touched the minds of the Zephyrian crew. Directly. "Admiral Kethver," Sarah said, "we need to talk." On the flagship's bridge, the Admiral was shouting orders at his crew. Sarah could feel his anger and confusion through the ship's senses. "How are you doing this?" he demanded. "This technology is impossible." "No, Admiral. Just very old." Through the ship's memory, Sarah remembered the day 30 years ago when human deep space explorers had found the derelict vessel drifting in the void between stars. It had been larger than anything humans had ever built, but completely dead. No power, no life, no signs of whoever had built it. The scientists had tried to study it for months. They could not understand how any of it worked. The technology was too advanced, too different from anything humans knew. Most people wanted to give up and leave the dead ship alone. But humans did not give up easily, and they were very good at adapting. "We did not try to copy your technology," Sarah said to the alien ship's memory core, which still lived deep inside the Prometheus. "We became part of it." The first volunteers had been dying soldiers from Earth's last war. Men and women who had nothing left to lose. They had let the alien machines merge with their bodies and minds, becoming something new, something that was both human and not human. It had taken years to learn how to work with the ancient systems. The technology did not just manipulate matter and energy. It reached into the basic structure of reality and changed the rules. "Admiral," Sarah said to the Zephyrian commander, "your people believe that physics cannot be changed. You think the universe has fixed laws that cannot be broken." "Because they cannot be broken," Kethver replied. "The race that built this ship learned to write new laws. We learned from them. Around the Prometheus, space began to change. The stars moved into new patterns. Gravity flowed in directions that should not exist. The Zephyrian ships found themselves unable to move away, held in place by forces they could not understand." "This is impossible," the Admiral said. "You keep saying that word," Sarah replied. "But we are doing it anyway." She walked to the front of her bridge, where a wall of what looked like living glass showed her the enemy fleet. Through the ship's senses, she could feel the fear of 50,000 alien soldiers. We did not want this fight, she said. Humans were happy to stay in our small part of space. We were still learning how to use what we had found, still becoming what we needed to become. The ship's memory showed her images of Earth and the human colonies. Peaceful worlds where people lived simple lives, not knowing that their military had found something that could change everything. But then your empire started expanding, Sarah continued. You began conquering other species, enslaving them. We could not let that continue. Humans are primitives, Admiral HFY said, but his voice was not as strong as before. You have no right to judge the Zephyrian Empire. We were primitives, Sarah agreed. But we learned to become more. She reached out with her mind and touched the ship's weapon systems. They were not weapons in any normal sense. They were tools that could reshape reality itself. Show me the third dreadnought, she said. The ship's attention focused on a large Zephyrian warship. Sarah could see its crew, preparing to fire their biggest guns. The dreadnought was over 1 kilometer long and carried enough firepower to destroy a city. Disable it, Sarah ordered. The Prometheus reached out with invisible hands made of twisted space-time. It found the dreadnought's power core and simply turned it off. Not by breaking it or damaging it, but by convincing the universe that the power core did not want to work anymore. The massive warship went dark. Its engines stopped. Its weapons powered down. Its life support systems continued working, but everything else simply stopped. How? Admiral HFY whispered. We asked nicely. Sarah said. The second dreadnought tried to run. Its engines burned at full power, pushing the huge ship away from the Prometheus as fast as possible. But the human vessel reached out and folded space around the fleeing warship. No matter how fast the dreadnought flew, it remained in the same place. Stop this, the Admiral demanded. This is not how space combat works. You are right, Sarah said. This is not combat at all. The third dreadnought opened fire with every weapon it had. Hundreds of energy beams and missiles streaked toward the Prometheus. But the human ship was no longer where the weapons were aimed. It existed in several places at once, spreading itself across multiple points in space. The Zephyrian weapons passed harmlessly through empty space where the Prometheus had been a moment before. Then the human ship pulled itself back together in a new location, completely undamaged. Your turn, Sarah said. She did not fire weapons at the third dreadnought. Instead, she reached into its structure and began to change it. The ship's hull flowed like water, reshaping itself into a perfect sphere. The weapons melted and reformed into something harmless. The crew was safely moved to the center of the sphere, where they could breathe and live, but could not control their ship anymore. What are you? Admiral HFY asked quietly. Sarah thought about the question. She was still human in many ways. She still cared about right and wrong. She still wanted to protect innocent people. But she was also something more now. Something that could reach across space and time to touch the fundamental forces of the universe. We are what humans become when we refuse to give up, she said. When we find something impossible and make it work anyway. The rest of the Zephyrian fleet was retreating now, but they moved slowly. Too slowly. The Prometheus could catch them all if it wanted to. We could destroy your entire fleet in minutes, Sarah said to the Admiral. We could reach across space and turn off every star in your empire. We could make your home planets forget how to exist. Then why do you not do it? Because we are still human, Admiral, and humans believe in mercy. Around them, space began to return to normal. The stars moved back to their proper places. Gravity flowed in the right directions again. But the 3 dreadnoughts remained disabled, proof of what the Prometheus could do. We are sending your crews home, Sarah said. Tell your empire what you have seen here. Tell them the age of conquest is over. And if we refuse? HFY asked. Sarah. smiled, but it was not a happy smile. And we will show you what happens when humans stop being merciful. Admiral Kethver watched in horror as his mighty fleet was torn apart piece by piece. But the humans were not destroying his ships. They were doing something much worse. They were playing with them that the Prometheus moved through his formation, like a shark among small fish. It did not need to hurry. It did not need to use brute force. It simply changed the rules of how things worked. "Sir," Lieutenant Yexta called out, her voice shaking. "The cruiser squadron is reporting that their weapons have turned into flowers." "What?" "They're missile launchers, sir. They are growing flowers now. Real flowers. The crews do not understand how it happened." Kethver looked at his tactical display. Half of his fleet was showing error codes. The other half was showing readings. That made no sense. Ships were moving in impossible directions. Weapons were refusing to work. Some vessels had simply vanished from sensors entirely. "The destroyer wing is asking for help," another officer reported. "They say their ship is flying backward through time." "That is impossible." "Yes, sir, but they insist they are seeing things that happened yesterday." On the main screen, the human ship drifted slowly through his fleet. It was not even trying to look dangerous anymore. Parts of it were transparent, showing the crew inside. The humans looked calm, almost bored, like they were doing a simple training exercise instead of fighting the most powerful fleet in Zephyrian space. "Sir, Commander," Zalkith said quietly, "maybe we should surrender." Never. Kethver's pride would not let him give up. "Signal all remaining ships. Focus fire on that human vessel. Everything we have. Sir, our weapons do not seem to work against them. Then we will find weapons that do work." But even as he gave the order, Kethver knew it was hopeless. How could you fight an enemy that could change the laws of physics? How could you defeat someone who could make your weapons turn into flowers? The remaining ships of his fleet tried to follow his orders. They fired everything they had at the Prometheus. Energy beams, missiles, kinetic rounds, even experimental. Weapons that most crews had never used before. None of it mattered. The human ship reached out with invisible hands and caught every weapon before it could hit. Then it did something that made Kethver's brain hurt to watch. It turned all the weapons into butterflies. Thousands of beautiful, colorful butterflies filled the space around the Prometheus. They flew in perfect formations, creating patterns of light and color that were somehow more frightening than any explosion could have been. "They are mocking us," Zalkith whispered. "No," said a new voice. Captain Chun's voice came through their speakers again. "We are trying to show you something." "Show us what?" Kethver demanded. "That violence is not the only way to solve problems." The butterflies began to glow and change. They formed into shapes that looked like words in the Zephyrian language. The message was simple. "Why are you fighting us?" Kethver stared at the glowing words floating in space. "Because you are in our way. This sector belongs to the Zephyrian Empire now." "According to who?" Captain Chun asked. "According to our right of conquest. We are stronger than the species that lived here before. And we are stronger than you. Does that give us the right to conquer your empire?" The question hit Kethver like a physical blow. In all his years as a military officer, he had never thought about it that way. The Zephyrian Empire took what it wanted because it could. That was how the universe worked. "We could end this war in an hour," Captain Chun continued. "We could reach across space and turn off every star in Zephyrian territory. Your people would freeze in the darkness. Is that what you want? You would not do that." "No, we would not. Because we are better than that. The question is, are you?" Around the fleet, more impossible things began to happen. Ships that had been damaged found themselves completely repaired. Crew members who had been injured discovered they were perfectly healthy again. Weapon systems that had been turned into flowers changed back into normal equipment, but now the weapons would not fire at human targets. They had been changed in some deep way that made violence against humans impossible. "We are not your enemies, Admiral," Captain Chun said. "We never were. You made us your enemies when you decided to conquer this part of space. We need room to expand," Kethver replied. "Our empire is growing. We need new worlds for our people. Then ask for them. Trade for them. Make friends with the species. Live here. Do not just take what you want." On the tactical display, Kethver watched as more of his ships were processed ... by the human vessel. The Prometheus moved from ship to ship, doing something to each one. His crews were not being hurt, but their vessels were being changed in ways he could not understand. "What are you doing to my fleet?" he asked. "We are making." "Sure, they cannot be used for conquest anymore," Captain Chun replied. "Your ships will still work perfectly for exploration, for trade, for peaceful purposes. But they will never again be able to attack innocent worlds. You cannot do this. We are a military force. You were a military force. Now you are something else." Kethver watched as his flagship's own weapon systems began to change. The targeting computers displayed new messages. Unable to lock onto civilian targets. Unable to fire on inhabited worlds. Unable to engage peaceful vessels. His ships were being turned into exploration vessels, science ships, rescue ships. Everything except weapons of war. "This is an act of war," he said. "No, Admiral. This is an act of mercy. We could have destroyed your entire fleet. We could have killed every one of your crew members. Instead, we are giving you a chance to become something better. The Empire will send more fleets, and we will change them too. Every warship that enters human space will leave as something peaceful. Eventually, your Empire will have to decide if it wants to keep sending ships to be converted, or if it wants to try a different approach." Around the fleet, the impossible modifications continued. Troop transports found their weapons replaced with medical equipment. Their cargo bays filled with food and medicine instead of weapons and soldiers. Assault shuttles became rescue vehicles. Battle cruisers turned into mobile hospitals. "You are destroying everything we built," Kethver said. "We are giving you the chance to build something better." The Admiral looked at his bridge crew. They were staring at their screens in shock and confusion. Everything they had trained for, everything they believed in, was being turned upside down. "Sir," Yexta said quietly, "incoming transmission from the Empire. They want a status report." Kethver looked at the communication panel. How could he explain this to his superiors? How could he tell them that one human ship had defeated the most powerful fleet in Zephyrian space without firing a single shot? "Admiral," Captain Chun's voice came through the speakers one more time, "you have a choice to make. You can report back to your Empire that humans are a threat to be destroyed. If you do that, they will send bigger fleets, more ships, more weapons, and we will convert them all. Or you can tell them the truth, that humans are not interested in conquest. We want to live in peace. We want to trade and explore and learn from other species. But we will not let anyone conquer or enslave innocent worlds. Not anymore." Kethver thought about the worlds his empire had conquered, the species they had enslaved, the billions of beings who lived under Zephyrian rule because they were too weak to resist. "What happens to our empire?" he asked. "That depends on what your people choose to do. You can keep trying to expand through conquest, and we will keep stopping you. Or you can try something different, something better." The Admiral looked at his fleet on the tactical display. 200 ships that had entered human space as instruments of war. 200 ships that would leave as something else entirely. The Empire will not understand, he said. Then help them understand, Admiral. Show them that there is another way to be strong. Show them that true power comes from helping others, not from conquering them. Kethver closed his eyes and made his choice. 3 months later, Admiral Kethve stood before the Zephyrian High Council on the whole world. The great chamber was filled with the Empire's most powerful leaders. Their blue skin showed the dark marks of anger and disbelief. You expect us to believe, said High Chancellor Mordith, that one human ship defeated our entire invasion fleet? I expect you to believe the truth, Kethver replied, because I have proof. He activated the holographic display in the center of the chamber. Images filled the air, showing his fleet's encounter with the Prometheus. The council members watched in stunned silence as weapons turned into flowers, as ships were reshaped. Like clay, as the laws of physics bent to the will of the human vessel. This is impossible, muttered General Vextar. That is what I said, Kethver replied. I was wrong. High Chancellor Mordith leaned forward in her chair. Even if this recording is real, it shows only one ship. Humans cannot have many vessels like this. You are wrong about that too. Kethver changed the display to show recent intelligence reports. Images of human space revealed the truth that the Zephian Empire had refused to see. 7 more ships, like the Prometheus, were under construction in human shipyards. Ships that looked like they were grown rather than built. Vessels that bent space around them like living creatures. The humans have been busy, Kethvar continued. While we dismissed them as primitives, they were becoming something new. Something we cannot fight with normal weapons. Then we build better weapons, General Vextar said. We research their technology. We find a way to defeat them. With what? Kethver asked. They can change the rules of physics. They can make our weapons stop working by asking them politely. How do you fight an enemy that can turn your battleships into hospitals? The council chamber became very quiet. These were the leaders who had built the greatest empire in known space. They had conquered dozens of worlds, enslaved hundreds of species, controlled entire star systems. The idea that they could not defeat one small group of humans was impossible for them to accept. There must be a way, the High Chancellor said. Send more fleets. Send our experimental weapons. Send everything we have. I tried that approach, Kethver replied. It did not work. The humans did not destroy my ships. They converted them. Every vessel in my fleet is now a peaceful exploration ship. My weapons will not fire on civilian targets. My troop transports have been turned into hospital ships. He paused and looked around the chamber at the angry faces of his leaders. But perhaps that is not such a bad thing. The reaction was immediate. Shouts of anger filled the chamber. Several council members stood up from their chairs, their skin showing the deep purple color of rage. You have been corrupted by human influence, General Vextar accused. You are no longer fit to command. I have been enlightened, Kethver replied calmly. Do you know what I learned during my 3 months commanding a peaceful fleet? We do not care, the High Chancellor snapped. I learned that exploration is more exciting than conquest. I learned that my crews are happier when they are helping people instead of enslaving them. I learned that there are wonders in the universe we never bothered to look for because we were too busy taking what belonged to others. He changed the holographic display again. Now it showed images from his fleet's journey home. His converted ships had stopped at 7 different worlds along the way. Worlds that were suffering from natural disasters, disease, or famine. My medical ships saved 2 million lives on Kethara Prime, he said. My exploration vessels discovered 3 new habitable worlds that no one had claimed. My supply ships delivered food and medicine to colonies that were dying from plague. Images showed grateful alien faces. Species that had once feared the Zephyrian Empire now welcomed his ships as saviors instead of conquerors. When we returned to Zephyrian space, Kethve continued, we were greeted as heroes. Not because we had conquered new worlds, but because we had helped save existing ones. Our own people celebrated us more than they ever celebrated our military victories. Enough, the High Chancellor said. You will be relieved of command. General, Vexstar will lead a new invasion fleet against human space. That would be a mistake. The voice came from the chamber's communication system. Everyone turned to look at the speakers in surprise. This is Captain Sarah Chun of the U. East Prometheus, the voice continued. We have been monitoring your discussion. Impossible, General Vexstar said. Our communications are encrypted and secured. Your encryption is very good, Captain Chun agreed. But we do not need to break codes when we can simply ask the universe to show us what we want to know. A new image appeared in the holographic display. It showed the Prometheus floating in space just outside Zephyrian space. But it was not alone. 7 other human ships surrounded it. Each one looked different, but all of them had the same impossible quality of seeming to exist in more than 3 dimensions. Admiral Kethver speaks the truth, Captain Sean said. We converted his fleet because we had no choice. You were invading our space and threatening innocent worlds. We stopped you with the minimum force necessary. You attacked our ships. The High Chancellor accused. We defended ourselves. And we offered you a better path. Admiral Kethver chose to take that path. His crews are happier, his ships are more useful, and his empire benefits from their good works. We hope the rest of your people will make the same choice. General Vexstar stepped forward. We will never surrender to human demands. We are not demanding anything. We are offering you the chance to become something better than conquerors. The display changed to show a star map of the local galaxy. Human space was marked in blue, Zephyrian space in red. But now there were new colors. Green zones that showed worlds where Kethver's converted fleet had provided help. Yellow zones that showed species asking for Zephyrian aid instead of fearing. Zephyrian conquest. This is what happens when you help instead of hurt, Captain Sean explained. Other species begin to trust you. They invite you to their worlds. They share their knowledge and resources. They become your friends instead of your slaves. We do not need friends, General Vexstar said. We need territory and resources. Your friends will give you both freely. Your slaves will only give you rebellion and hatred. High Chancellor Mordith studied the star map carefully. The green and yellow zones were growing larger. Each day as word spread about the Zephyrian fleet that helped instead of conquered. What do you want from us? She asked finally. Nothing, Captain Sean replied. We want you to choose your own path. But understand this. The age of conquest is over. Any military fleet that enters human-protected space will be converted to peaceful purposes. Any attempt to enslave or conquer innocent worlds will be stopped. And if we refuse, then you will keep sending fleets, and we will keep converting them. Eventually, your entire military will become a force for peace and exploration. The choice is whether this happens quickly or slowly. The council chamber was silent for a long moment. These proud leaders were being offered something they had never considered, a chance to be loved instead of feared. How do we know you will not conquer us when we are defenseless? General Vexstar asked. Because we could conquer you right now if we wanted to, Captain Sean replied. Our ships could reach your home world in minutes. We could turn off your sun or reshape your planet. But we do not want your territory. We want your friendship. Admiral Kethver stepped forward. I have seen what they can do. I have also seen what we can become when we choose to help instead of hurt. The decision is ours. High Chancellor Mordith looked around the chamber at her fellow leaders. Some still showed the purple color of anger. Others had shifted to the blue-green shade. That meant deep thought. "You are asking us to abandon everything we have built," she said. "We are asking you to build something better," Captain Sean replied. "Something that will last longer than fear. Something that will make your people proud instead of ashamed." Kethvar activated his personal communicator. "This is Admiral Kethvar to all Zephyrian forces. New orders are coming from the High Council. Prepare for a different kind of mission." He looked directly at the High Chancellor. "The universe is big enough. For all of us, we just need to learn how to share it." Outside the council chamber, across Zephyrian space, military commanders waited for orders. Some hoped for war. Others hoped for peace. All of them knew that whatever decision was made in that room would change their empire forever. The age of human isolation was indeed over. But perhaps, if both species chose wisely, it could be the beginning of something much better. In the depths of space, 8 impossible ships waited patiently for the galaxy to decide what it wanted to become.